And we are back. Thanks for tuning in. If you're attending live, it's in the CalChiro conference, and we want to thank them for hosting us at ChiroThon. And if you're not with us on the ground, we want to thank you for joining us virtually, because it's so excited to have you stopping by and being able to watch these segments, because I think these individuals are so packed full of resources and wisdom, and they're living their lives, but they're living their lives with a way of looking at health in such a beautiful way. Now, our next vignette is sponsored by Standard Process. Standard Process has been a leader in whole food nutritional supplements for over 95 years. They cultivate raw ingredients from seed to soil to supplement, the great majority of which are grown on their certified organic farms. We have this moment to reflect on what it means to have high quality products, and Standard Process loves to advance health and change lives. If you want to learn more about Standard Process, you can go to standardprocess.com. Well, the beauty of this next segment, although our guest couldn't be here with us live, we are so happy to have him virtually. I got to tell you, this individual has a heart of gold, and he does for his community by leading. He actually does what he wants to do in his community through leading with his heart and then his head first. So I want to thank Marvin Benard. He is a professional athlete. He is the former World Series outfielder for the San Francisco Giants. Yay! And he's an absolute amazing record. You'll get to know more about the record in just a few moments, but I want to say a big shout out. Our Major League Baseball players are epic, and having a Giants outfielder talk about his experience in health really helps to engage on why professional athletes really do need chiropractic care. And every athlete is part of that process, but know that everyone is an athlete. No matter where you start, no matter where you end up, our bodies are made to move, and that's why I want to thank Marvin. He launched a pioneering initiative aimed at nurturing young baseball talent across Latin America. It's an absolute pleasure to have him, and I gotta say, if there's one person out there that really does mentor, it's Marvin Benard. Watch. Well, everyone, what a fantastic honor. We are so delighted that Marvin has joined us today. So welcome to our ChiroThon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, we're going to start with something kind of fun. How
Yeah.
did we meet, Marvin? Let's start there.
We're sitting next to each other on a plane. I was headed to Colombia. That was a month ago, right?
Yes.
And I told you since I went to Colombia, came back, and I've gone down to Nicaragua and back since. And now I'm waiting for October 16th so I could go down to Argentina. Since I've gotten done playing, I go around Latin America mostly. We did a little bit of Europe last year doing baseball clinics with the Alumni Association. So that keeps me busy. And it's the perks about that is that sometimes I get to take my family with me, which is awesome.
I love it. And as I reflect back in meeting certain people, there's certain people in my life that just shine. And to be with this audience and knowing that we're streaming live around the world, it's exciting because people are going to hear for the first time, where did Marvin go? What is Marvin up to? How is he keeping his time? And you are one of the true gems in the professional athletic arena that are so giving, so caring, and actually really do make a massive difference in the world to which we live in today. And I reflect on that for two reasons. One, because Today, the world is very different. And
Yeah.
oftentimes we have to reflect on what are we giving versus what are we getting? And you're just
Yeah.
giving of your time, your talent, and your wisdom. So I'm going to jump into asking some questions that I know my audience is going to want answered. So, as a former Major League Baseball player, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were looking at maintaining your health and wellness during your career?
Well, the key to the whole thing is to pay attention to your body, listen to your body. Um, a lot of times when we're a lot younger, we try to do the old college try and we try to push through it. And there's reasons we try to do that. But then sometimes you get into positions where you can pay attention a little bit more than others. Sometimes when you're in a hurry and you feel like you have to. That's the key thing. You don't always have to, because people would rather lose you for a week than a month. What I mean by that, in injury wise. So if you have to take a week off because you got to protect yourself from something that may or may not get bigger, uh, most trainers would rather do that as opposed to losing, or on teams for losing for a whole month. So just pay attention to your body. It'll talk to you. You just have to know how to listen to it.
That's a key component is listening to our body. And I have to say, for those that are listening, that you're kind of a rock star. Like you're a very, you're, I mean, when you think about, I did some video clips, so I do my homework, but I look at the number of hits you've had over your career, 714, 54 home runs. Correct me if some of these Google stats are wrong, but what's really impressive is your batting average at 271. You're like the epitome of someone who pushes hard, dreams big, and comes from what I understand, humble beginnings. So I
Mm.
love going backwards. I love that you can share with the younger audience in your life that you always go around and talk to, but also that you can share, this wasn't an easy journey. This was a journey where someone had
No.
to believe in you, and then you had to believe in yourself, and you performed masterfully. Tell us a little bit about your background and how did you end up with the San Francisco Giants, let alone a World Series player?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. I was born in Nicaragua originally. Moved to the United States when I was 12 years old. 82. I could still remember. I could still see it like if it was yesterday when my mom took me to middle school to go get me registered. And I was walking up the steps, and there was a kid. Remember, the punk rock era was in back then. And there was a kid with spike hair and spikes everywhere. And we were walking in. He was walking out. I looked at my mom and said, "I'm not going in there," because that's what I was expecting to see. So my mom and my aunt started laughing. It's like, no, no, not everybody's that way. They're just kid expressing themselves. And anyway, so went in there, got registered, just kept my head down. When you think about it, when you're 12 years old and you leave a country to learn different languages, customs, the way kids went about doing things. You don't have no friends. You don't speak the language. You don't know how to get along with people because how do you communicate?
Right.
And I met my friend Renee, and he was the first friend I met. Then I met Gilbert. Matter of fact, I'm still friends with them now. And one thing led to another. I went to a PE class. Um, Hit a softball, what seemed to everybody was a long way. Word spread. Next thing you know, I was in high school, and everywhere I've gone, seems like everything I've ever done, people always came to see somebody else, but they left with me. You know, when I was in high school, they came to see this picture that we had, and everybody came to see him. Next thing you know, I got drafted. Then I went to junior college, and then they came to see, one guy, and they ended up leaving with me. So my whole life, that seems, it's like I was never the guy, if that makes any sense. I was never
Yes,
the
because
one.
it's Marvin magic. Because you can catch anyone's attention, but you're so
Yeah.
kind, and people
Uh,
people can pick up on your energy. And
yeah.
those that are listening now, he's trying to play all like I'm in the back of the plane, nobody knows. And all of a sudden he stood up after we talked and he was mobbed. Can I take a picture?
That was kind of weird. I mean,
So,
people always, they always do the same thing. I try not to. I don't like saying because they always expect because of where you played, or they expect you have, financially okay, you should be sitting first class, right? And you sit there and go, what's the difference? We're gonna get there no matter what.
good for
You know
you.
what I mean?
That's the essence of why I think, well, you probably enjoyed the fact that I didn't know who you were.
It's always fun, you get to actually literally get to know people that
Yes,
way. It's easier to get to know people as opposed to telling them who you are, or flashing yourself and stuff like that. Because for some reason, when people, if you right off the bat, you tell people, oh, this is what I do, this is where I've been, this, either A, they're not going to believe you,
right.
or B, they're going to think you're presumptuous, and they just, rub them the wrong way, and I don't like doing that. I think they say that I'm a people person.
For sure.
I do. I love, I could go anywhere and see anybody, whether it's a t-shirt or a hat, whatever, and strike up a conversation about it and just start yapping away. Sometimes my teammates used to tease me and say, hey, your wife never let you talk at home, huh? Because when you come out here, you never shut up.
It's
So,
epic. I find that those type of people, and you have the Marvin Magic, are really relatable, but they're also big givers. And I want to think back to like Gilbert was a big giver to you. And then
yep.
the fact that you're still friends, and a big shout out to Gilbert because he's going to
Yeah.
listen to this. You have to make him listen now.
Yeah.
Go
No,
Gilbert, because it's the friends that we make when we're younger that are such treasures because they know you, the awkward kid who hits a ball, all the way up to the World Series player who's still the same guy, still puts his pants on the same way, but you're humble, generous, and very altruistic. And I think that's part of today's world is the giving and also being able to reflect on our health because wow, have we gotten it? Like our health is really now front and center because many of us got COVID and we're still trying to recover of what we lost during those times. So I would love to ask you now because you're traveling quite a bit and I was really impressed with how much you give and where you go. But how has your approach to health and fitness changed since you retired from professional baseball?
well, night and day difference. The bigger part is there's not that drive, right? Because when you're active and you're playing, there's a reason you have to work out, right? Because you got to show up and fit. You got to be fit. You got to make sure that the body's ready to go 162 games slash 7, 8 plus months because of spring training and everything. Now that you get done playing, obviously there's not that motivation. You can't play anymore. Not like someone like me who walked away. By the time I walked away, I had 7 different surgeries. So everything changes. Most of them were my knees, my back. Um, I ripped a tendon off my hip bone. I got plantar fasciitis. I've torn my calf, my quad. So I can't be active like I was when I was a lot younger, obviously. So now instead of running or playing pickup basketball, which I used to love doing, I can't do that anymore. So all I can do is walk. So I go to the gym and I get on the treadmill, and I start a particular speed and I make sure I incline to as high as I can. And again, we talked earlier about listening to your body. There's
Right.
times when I get up to about 9% incline. There's times I only get up to about 4. That's what my body's telling me today, just 4. When I feel great, I keep pushing it, you know. So and then I have to stretch out. I started doing yoga, which I thought was amazing. Uh, the stretching, the yoga, and then just sitting around and just listen. Like I said, to listen to your body. It'll speak to you if you just pay attention to it. Make sure I get my water, my intake, and rest a lot because I have to. Otherwise, everything starts hurting. If I do too much, it hurts. If I don't do enough, it still hurts. So I got to continue find a happy medium for everything.
It is that level of balance, I think, that many of us are going to have to recognize as we move from that very active, very intense, very stressful situation to where we need to be and have that kindness to our body that maybe we didn't or weren't able to give it in
Right.
the back in the day. And one of the things that really struck me as we were talking, because I noted I was a chiropractor and you were so kind. He's like, yeah, I'm a baseball player. And I wanted to know more. So how was your baseball career? What did you do? And then as soon as I got off the plane, I'm like, wow, he's kind of a rock star. Tell me how, I mean, you took a lot of injuries to the body based on the level to which you played, and you're very intense, and also the catches that you have to make when you're out there in the outfield, and you know, hitting the wall is a thing, and that can change your life all in one. I was just with a arena football player, and that wall's serious. Like that can change your life. Drop the mic and tell me more. How did chiropractic enter your life, and what did that make better for you?
Well, let's put it this way. I try to explain things the way it processes and it makes sense to me. Think of a frame of a house, right? You build in a house, you build a frame, and then suddenly you bring a car and you have that car bump in that frame or bump in that house. I don't know, say 4 or 5 times a day, right? Those bumps would be me running into a wall, diving to catch a ball, slide, running into somebody else. Um, so you keep bumping it, and if those frames are lined up right, eventually they're going to start shifting a little bit, right? Those are the bones; they start shifting. Well, why don't they fall out of place? Well, because there's muscles that are holding them in place. And if those muscles are strong, it's going to hold them in place, but they're going to shift a little bit, right? And that's when you start feeling knots and you start feeling pain, right? And sometimes we feel a knot and we don't tie it in that it may be the bone that shifted a little bit. So it's putting pressure on a particular area of the muscle. So you feel that knot. So people dig into the knot, right? And the knot is like a blood flow. You got to get the blood flow going, right? Well, but something doesn't feel right. Here comes a chiropractor, and he adjusts you and he puts those bones back into place. So even though you bumped it and it shifts out of place, the chiropractor puts it back into place. Suddenly that knot disappears, but you don't pay attention to the knot. Why? Because it just feels good. And when things feel good, we don't pay attention to it. You only pay attention to it when it hurts, right? So all of a sudden the knot disappeared, and then all of a sudden you go back again and you start sliding, you start running into walls, you start diving, and then those knots pop up again. But now it doesn't go that place, it goes somewhere else, right? Because the bump was a little bit harder on the other side of the house instead of the front side of the house, and it pushes it out of balance again, right? So here comes the chiropractor and lines you back up. So as long as you're aligned, right, the muscles are going to be fine. When the muscles get tense, is because there might be something that's shift out of line, right? Because the muscles don't get tense unless there's extra pressure on it. And when there's extra pressure, chances are there's a muscle. I mean, I'm sorry, there's a bone that may be kind of out of place a little bit. Doesn't take much, right? I'll give you an example. My wife's a pharmacist, and she was having issues with her hands. And she was constantly opening bottles and picking up pills and whatnot. And she went to the doctor, and they wanted to operate on her. They call it carpal tunnel. Not until she went to the chiropractor and found out that her joint at her shoulder was out of place. And as soon as it popped that back into place, everything disappeared.
Isn't that amazing? Say that again. That's the wrist pain. And it went
Yeah,
where? Where
to her
was the
shoulders,
problem?
up to her shoulder, almost by her rotator cuff area,
Don't
right?
you think that's amazing? Because we
Yeah.
always want to go to the signal of the symptom. The
Yep.
house is on fire. You
Yep.
can smell the smoke and you just don't know where in the house the fire is. And,
Yep.
and what a great example. Like you
Yeah.
teaching college.
Yeah. Again, I mean, for me, it makes sense, right? I mean, when you think about it, I come back to the frame of the house. If the car bumps the frame of the house, he bumped the front, but the board in the back might have gotten loose,
Hmm.
right? So if that's been supported one part of the house, and it's putting pressure on the other part of the house, and everything's connected, the weaker area is going to suffer. Again, my wife, they thought it was going to be carpal tunnel. They thought they were going to have surgery in the palm, and it turns out that her shoulder joint was jammed up. So once they popped that in, everything went away. So
how did they a lot of work is gone into education and collaborating and really being able to work with the MDs, because in the good old days the MDs are like, yeah, I don't get it.
yeah.
It doesn't work for me. How did it go when your wife said, I went to a chiropractor, I got my shoulder adjusted? Because if they don't understand that it's all connected, it's a whole being approach, it can
Hmm.
seem kind of weird. Like, oh, did he not know the problem was in the hand?
A lot of doctors don't. I'll
Yeah.
be honest with you, they don't. I have a kinesiology degree, which is the study of human movement, right? So that helps me a little bit. I'm not saying I'm an expert. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that with having a degree and going through some of the classes and then going through a lot of these surgeries that I went through, a lot of these, running into different people, rehabs and all that, it makes me more aware of what's going on. I can't remember how it's, I think something else happened to be bothering her and she went to the chiropractor to go fix something else, something with her back or something like that.
Yeah.
And he just started going down and, they just measuring her arms or hand and one thing led to another. And next, he popped the shoulder, pain went away just like that. Doctors they don't teach them that. Their stuff is medicine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I'll give you my analogy as a baseball player. If you talk about hitting, I could help you with that. Outfield, I could help you with that. Base running, I could help you with that. But if you ask me about catching, I have an idea, but I've never done it. If you ask me about pitching, I have an idea, but I've never done it. So I can't teach that to you. Just because I play baseball doesn't mean I'll make a good pitching coach, right? Just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you know anything about chiropractor or about physical therapy. They may have an idea, but they can't walk you through it. Their stuff is to understand and realize what causes bacteria. How do I cure this bacteria? What medication kills this and what medication kills that? So that's the way I look at things. And I try
Well
to,
said.
help myself by doing that.
Well, it's kind of magical because you do play in your zone. And just like your wife in the pharmacy, she's not giving information out at the pharmacy about what's going down the food aisle. She's in her lane. Like, this is what I do. This is
Yep.
the prescription I need to fill. And these are some of the adverse events that you need to be aware of. I would say one of your best friends in the world would be a pharmacist. And
Yes.
if you can depend on your pharmacist, you're golden.
Yeah.
Because I remember going with a bad sinus infection,
Yeah.
and I'm a chiropractor, so I should know this kind of thing. But I said, I really need something to decongest. And she goes, well, actually, I'd highly refer you to just go down the aisle and get yourself a saline rinse and rinse for the next 3 days. And
Yeah.
it's like, you can do the decongestions, but you know what? Saline is simple and it's helpful. And during allergy season, I'll tell you what, some of the pollen will land on the little ledges inside your sinus cavities. Blow it out. Have a better approach than just taking.
Yeah.
She could have given me the decongestion, but they're
Yeah.
so good at what they do because they have to know how things come together.
Yep.
And that's what
Yep.
I really appreciate. So you
Yep.
have to not only give Gilbert a shout out, now you have to give your wife a shout out. So thank you
Yep.
for that piece. The other piece to this is when our health has challenges or we are stressed, mental health, especially for athletes, because they're not only under the stress of the game, the stress of the competition, the stress of body repair, but we're also looking at how that is being managed in a positive light. So when you are going through the mental health aspect of all the stress, did you see did you see a lot of mental health stress in the professional athletic world? And if so or not, did you have anything that really worked well for you when you were feeling the stress and maybe even questioned your mental wellness at some of the times where you couldn't sleep, you weren't doing very well, you were in pain? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, from day one, my mindset's always been, who cares? What I mean by that, we're talking about just playing, right?
Right.
Um, my mindset's always been, so I'm gonna strike out, big deal. I've done it before. I'm gonna get hit by the ball, big deal. I've gotten hit before. The only thing a ball hasn't done to me is hit me and kill me. And we don't want to go down that way. Exactly, right? So everything else that I was gonna experience had happened before. So that was my mindset. I don't care, and I'm just gonna do it. So I wasn't going to stress out about things like that, right? I did play with guys that needed to have help with their, let's say, having therapists
Yeah.
to help them out. I learned early that if I worked my butt off and I did the best I could, that's all I had. There's nothing else I could do. If I prepared myself the right way, if I had an idea what was going on, and if I tried to do the best I could to help the team, that's all I can control, right? So don't stress out about, oh my goodness, we're gonna face blah 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 blah. He's so good. He's a who cares, right? He still has to go out and compete himself. What happens if he's having a bad day and I'm having a great day, right? What happened if just I just happen to have a bad day? It's part of life, right? You got good days, you get bad days. So that's always been my approach. I never cared. In a sense, though, when I say never cared, is so what if I mess up?
Right.
I don't care. I'm not the first one, I'm not the last. You they're gonna beat me up. I'm gonna beat them up, and it goes up, it goes down, and as long as I was in there trying to help the team the best I could, that's all I cared about. And I didn't. I literally didn't stress out about things like that. And I got this thing in me. I'm real good at watching what I call dumb TV and
Okay.
forget about everything. Yeah. If something, like now we got a 17-year-old at home, right? And when she's going through her issues, we concern ourselves as parents because we don't know. It's the unknown that really gets to us. The unknown is what drives us crazy, right? So here we are running through all these scenarios in our head and it's bothering us, so we can't sleep, and we don't know. But yet it's bothering us because of the pictures, the film that we're running through our own head. So I get up in the middle of the night. Yeah, I get up in the middle of the night if I have to, and I watch what I call dumb TV. TV that makes no sense. Just sit there and laugh and just, you know, forget about it.
I love that you always have an energy that just brings it back to it can be serious, but
Hmm.
this is what's in my control. And
Yeah,
laughing really is one of those things that brings us great joy. It does. It alleviates the stress. We forget sometimes we get so focused on one thing, the stress of it, not
yeah,
knowing. You just
yeah,
let it all go. And I enjoy being a major league baseball player and being in some serious, very serious games where it comes down to potentially you. It comes down to you.
yeah,
And then you have to go up and say, this is the best I can do. I'm well prepared. It's
yeah,
preparation, preparation, preparation. Then when the time is right,
yeah.
I've done everything I can. Now it's time to perform, and I'm going to do the best I can with what I got. And I think that has a lot to do with our young athletes today is preparing them because you do so much travel around the world, really getting people to not only love the game of baseball, but being their best and setting them up. It's that
Hmm.
preparation. And when you look back and you think about your own health and how you had to put a team together just to take care of your health, what were some of
Hmm.
the highlights or lowlights that you reflect on that you can think of if my world was altered just this little teeny bit and I was a young athlete again, and we just finished Drug-Free Pain Management Awareness Month in September. So we're kind of looking at, always wanting to be drug-free first if we
Yep.
can as an approach.
Yeah.
And then, you want to recover as fast as you can. And a lot of these athletes are compromising themselves because they're getting back on the field too fast.
Hmm.
You're looking back, you had an amazing career. I mean, 271, you're pretty solid in being the thing that young kids look up to and say, wow, he's what I want to be when I grow up. Reflect back on you. What would you have told your younger self when it came to recovery and performance and some of the things you had to go through, or should I say, grow through
No, yeah.
as you became the MLB professional baseball player?
Um, I didn't, I didn't really learn that till later in my career because I never gotten hurt. I just, I worked like if I was going to run a marathon, and my body was always pretty good shape. When you're young and you put your body you prepare your body the right way, it'll last a long time for you. But there's going to come a time you start getting a little bit older,
Right.
things just going to happen. In 2002, I had my first surgery. And I could vividly remember my friend Sean looking at me and said, Marvin, he goes, pack your bags, go home. You got 2 years left on your contract. Let your body heal your injury naturally. And then 2003 and I mean 2002, 2003, and see what happens. Well, my concept has always been the team, the team, the team, the team. And I felt like I was letting the team down because I was hurt. And then you start seeing, beautiful things happen in the team, and you start thinking, wow, we could, we're gonna win, and we're gonna go to the playoffs. I want to be part of it. And I kept pushing, and I kept pushing, and I kept pushing, and I kept pushing. And I didn't listen to my body. I didn't take his advice. If I would have, I honestly think if I would have just listened to what he told me, went home for I don't know for the 4 months I was left, which would mean it would have gave me another pretty much 7 months for rehab. I might have played another 4 or 5 years. Instead, I stayed. I kept pushing, I kept pushing, kept pushing, and the leg got strong enough, but not enough. Right, and I ended up having 3 more surgeries on that same leg
Mm.
because I never went home. I stayed and I kept pushing, and I kept wanting to be part of the playoff team. And at the end, I wasn't because they weren't sure that they weren't going to trust it. Because when you put somebody on a roster for playoffs and they get hurt, you can't replace them just like that. You got to wait to get the next round. You know, so I if we're looking back, I wish I would have listened. I would have listened to my body, I would have listened to the advice they gave me, and just gone home and let my body heal naturally. But hey, here and there, right?
Well, I'm hoping the lives that hear your voice and your energy, your passion, your commitment to what baseball was to you and how you can reflect going backwards is this is a moment that all of us have to take in. This is the wisdom we learn from others and we enjoy hearing from others because sometimes we're at that fork in the road where we could go left, we could go right. And having someone who has gone left and said, yeah, this is the way to go, come with
Yeah,
me. That's so beautiful. And I think that makes our world a stronger, better place to live in because we don't know all the answers. And it's always
yeah,
nice to have a big shoulder to lean on. And I'm just grateful that you were willing to share your time, your talent,
yeah,
and your wisdom with us. And that chiropractic was one of the things that really helped you keep in the game. And as a
yeah.
final thought, if you were to say going back and there was a chiropractor on the field, what would you say to them in reflect to how it kept you in the game?
To the chiropractor,
Yeah,
oh, thank you. The chiropractor that was in our clubhouse, we gave him a hard time. We were always all over him, and we teased him a lot, right? Because remember, like you said, chiropractor was, it's a newer concept, right? And especially when you come into baseball, you got guys that didn't pay attention to it, but then they started realizing that, hey, this stuff works. It feels amazing, right? So I don't know, like guys in clubhouse, the more they tease you, the more they pick on you, the more they're bonding with you,
sure.
right? And from an outsider point of view, if the way we treated our chiropractor, you would think we hated him, right? And he would
Not
just
bad,
sit
huh,
there.
Marvin?
Yeah, no, no. But these are guys, or he's a guy. He was
Yeah.
a guy, and guys, the more they tease you, the more they like you. That's how we bond, right? And we would just pick on them throughout the whole game. We'd run off the field and say stuff like, "Yeah, thanks a lot. If you'd adjusted me right before that, I would have caught that ball. It's your fault I didn't miss that ball. Just." And he would always sit there and smile, and he started realizing that what, these guys, they like what I'm doing for them. They appreciate it. And he was getting his perks, so come in the clubhouse, be in the dugout, because as a fan, it's a big deal for you to be
Yeah.
in the dugout during a game. I've been on the NFL sideline one time, and I felt I was there, and I couldn't believe I was there. And then I started seeing the water bottles, and then I wanted to run on the field with the water bottles to give the guys, but the water bottle guy wouldn't, the official guy wouldn't let me put on his vest. So I was kind of like, come on, dude, they wouldn't even notice. I could just run out there real quick. Trust me, I won't fall. But so
I'll
it's
be
one of
the
those
best
things.
water boy ever.
Exactly. So it's, as an athlete, you always look to other athletes that are playing other sports that are at that level,
Hmm.
and we always, every baseball player wants to be an NBA guy. Every NBA guy wants to be a baseball player. Every baseball player wants to be in the NFL and vice versa, but again, with the chiropractor Dan that was in there, he was just amazing, and he got to the point where he felt like one of the guys, and so for me, personally, it was big for me. Like I said, there was times I would run off the field, literally coming off the field, feel like my hip locking up on my knee locking up, and it would just take me down in the tunnel, pop it back out, and go back like nothing happened. Those are things that the fans don't see, don't
Right.
understand, don't know that there was a chiropractor down there that just popped this guy's shoulder back in, or his elbow, and there he is running back. And they're like, oh, what a great play he just made. Well, guess what? If Dan wasn't in the clubhouse or in the dugout, they might have taken him out the game, and we'd have lost the game because of that. So I'm grateful for it, and I'm grateful that I got to the experience to be around chiropractors and understand how it works. And like I told you, my analogy of the whole thing is the house. You keep bumping a house, pegs are going to get loose, muscle's going to hold them, yes, but they're going to get loose and they're going to start hurting. So whenever I could feel I still use my chiropractors, so my insurance always wants to know how many treatment. Of course, that's their
Right.
version. How many treatment? What's the plan? You always get that. So it was like, I don't know, 5 treatment. Here's a plan, and they're all, okay, and then we're good. So I would say I'm at the placement point where I go maybe once every month, once every 2 months, and then I could catch when things are coming in, and I could have little exercises that I do to maybe strengthen up the muscles around that area, so it could maybe get it back in place if necessary. If not, I go see a chiropractor.
Well, Marvin, your kinesiology degree did you very, very well. You have put it in place where I think a mother that has a son or daughter that are playing to become professional will get it. It's really about maintenance. It's really about
Mm-hmm.
being able to recognize the when. And I have to say, a lot of the chiropractors that are behind the scenes in every major league, whether it's NFL, the NBA, or the National Baseball, is the the chiropractors are there and they're
Yeah.
not looking for the spotlight. They're just looking to make
No.
sure that you can be optimized at your full
Yeah.
potential. So I thank you because you are doing a service to so many around the world, just being able to continue to share the energy, the charisma, and who doesn't love baseball? I hope everyone
Yeah.
listening is a lover of baseball because it is the all-American sport. It brings us
Yep.
all
Yep. Yep.
together and it's a lot of fun. But thank you so much for joining us today in the ChiroThon, Marvin. I don't want you to forget that we are raising funds and awareness for chiropractic care. So wherever you are in the world, we really do need to get this message out for those that are suffering. We want you to help us reach our goal and donate f4cp.org/Chirothon 2024. Stay tuned. We have another very, very exciting guest coming up, but we'll be right back after a very short break.